Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the part 2 of the lecture demonstration on Android working on databases using SQLite database. So, without wasting more time, let's proceed on the demonstration wherein we will create or will now integrate the SQLite database on our project created on part 1. So we have here our S application or Android app created on part 1 of this lecture demonstration. So now we'll now have to create or we'll now have to create a Java code or proceed to Java coding in for integrating SQLite to our Android app. Okay, so first, instead of creating the code here in our main activity.java, we'll create a new class, Java class, for our what we call SQLite database, wherein we'll put in this class all of the queries for our database, tables, and whatsoever that is needed in communication for our application to the SQLite database. So we will just name it here. We will just name our class into SQLite helper. So, although you can create another name of this Java class, we'll just have to use this one because I'm used to it on using this type of new name for for this Java class. Okay, so we'll just create. Then here we have now in our SQLite helper.java class. Then we'll have to extend it into SQLite open helper. So that is why I name itself into SQLite helper because we need to extend it in SQLite open helper. So then we have here an error. So we just have to click this one here, this icon. Then we need to implement methods. So we just have to click this one. Then make sure this to on create and on upgrade is selected. So we just have to click OK. Then another error. So we have to create constructor matching super. So just have to click this one here, then select the first one, then click OK. Then we have here our public class, then we have your public SQLite helper, then we have here the on create override, then we have the on upgrade. So in this on create, we will know what will happen on this one and on this one. So in our public SQLite helper, we'll just have to remove this one, remove this nullable, then string name, then we will change it into our database or our database name. So we'll just have database that we are going to create, name of our database. So we'll just have to use this name, user db. Then that file extension for SQLite database is sdb. Then just have to remove this one and change it into null. Then the version, we'll just have to, I'm sorry, so okay, so in our SQLite helper, we'll just remove this nullable. We'll not need this also this part here from, so we'll just remain the So in our SQLite helper, we'll just have to remove everything other than the context. So we'll just have to remove this one and this part here until version. So we have an error here, so we'll just have to change the name. So the name here will be refers to our user or our database name or SQLite database. So we'll just use this name. So this will be our database name. Then you can create or you can use another name or whatsoever asa mo comfortable in naming your database. So .db. So the file extension for this DB is database is DB, SQLite database. The factory will just have to put null, then version will use 1. Then after this one, this part here will put the code on how to create in creating tables. So we put here codes queries SQL codes in creating database tables. So I'll just have to rename this one because I'm used to renaming this type of, although you can use this word here, this DB. So I'll just have to rename it myself because I'm used to it. So you can just leave it as is depending on your taste. So this part here will create the table. So SQL db dot execute SQL. So select the first one. Then in this part here we will create the table for our database user db. So we have here create table, although you can type it into lowercase, so pwede rin na siya, but I'm used to in using uppercase, so with that too I didn't do because I'm used to it. So in this part here we will create a table for our user information. So user, we will name it as user info. So create table, so the name of our table is user info. Then we'll have to put open and close parentheses. This part here we will create or we will specify the fields or of our table. So for and first field is called ID. So ID because uh, for we use ID rather than using directly the word full name because this ID is will be used in your database normalization, also in your SQL queries or joining tables or for joining tables. It can be used in for your queries or to make it more plain. So we will use this ID for joining tables. Or to make it more plain simple explain or to make a more plain simple explanation, so this ID is used for database normalization, so that if mag if you are going to have a or if you're going to have a query which na mag-need of mag-join of table, so this ID can be used in joining tables in your database. Or to make a simple explanation for this one, so we'll be using this ID for database normalization. So you will know what's the purpose for this one in your next webinar topic. See. Then the data type for this one, I'll just have to set it into integers. Then I'll have to save it as a primary key. Then space this auto increment. because we will not put any data for this ID. It is a primary key, so it must be a unique identifier. Then I'll just have to set it into auto incrementation or to auto increment, so that in every data being inserted to this table, this ID field will be what we call auto incremented, starting from 1 down to how many table or data will be inserted in this table. Then next, we'll just have to put comma, then another field, sorry, full name. So this field here, kung unsa ang insert nga full name, siya ang mo at ma-insert na nga field, nga table. So full name, so I'll just have to use the data type X. Then next is username. Sorry. Username. And so we all know that it is a practice to use lowercase in creating database fields or table fields. Next is the password. Then I just have to set the data type X because it is text, combination of characters now, numbers and letters. Then we have here email. Sorry. Then still the data type of text. Then mao na siya in how to code and how to create a table for your user DB database. So create table, user info, integer ID, integer primary key, auto increment, full name for your username, field for your password, and your email. So next is we'll just have to create and we'll put a code here in an upgrade SQLDB, this one, dot xsql. So we'll have to create a query here, drop table. So it means drop table if exists, so that if na-exist na nga table, and every time you are going to run your application, this SQLite helper here will create the same table every now and then nga imong i-execute imong application. Since if already created na nga table, user info, then sa yang na-create na table, iyang i-drop na if ni-exist na siya sa imong user database, user info. Then semicolon. So every time na nagparaan mo sa imong application, so iyan na siyang i-drop na table if ni-exist na nga user info table. Next, we will have create queries, SQL queries. Queries for user info table. So here we will create all the queries, all the SQL queries, like inserting data, updating data, and deleting inserted user information. Okay, so we have here, first we'll create the public boolean insert. So I just have to name the public class or public function to insert user data. So we'll create this public function is part of your public class, which is the SQLite helper. So insert user data. Then we will be needing data, which is once you are going to call this function, we will be needing the full name, the username, password, and email, which is to be inserted in our table. So we'll just have to use if name, then username, then string username, role of function, parameters, passings na ay individual nga data type. Username, then password, then string email. Open and close curly brace. Then we'll declare here an SQLite database class, then just name itself as DB. equals is that get writable database. Then content values, we just have to name content values. So a new class which is a content values. So this content values will be used in inserting new data to our database. Okay, so content values that in inserting data put. So first is here, take note that unsay nada ni this what we call key here is your database field or table field, which is full name, username, password, and email. So make sure na same siya o text. Then put in our field full name unsa may mong i-put na nga full name, which is string if name. Then another content values that put, then we have the username, then will be given by the string you name. Then another one is password, and we have the pass. Next is email, then followed by email. To make a different one, you email or username email. Okay, so after this one here, we'll have to we're going to create a query here. So cursor is what we call the type of class that will be the one to hold sa result sa imong query. So we will be using this one because we are going to query if ang atong gi-insert na user info may exist ba or wala. So we'll have to create a query here, select, so that wala tayo duplicate entry of user info. Select asterisk from user info, where full name is equals to question mark, then new string, then ang imong i-compare na value kung ni-exist ba na siya, which is the if name. So in this query here, it will result to a get, what we call cursor will hold a result from our query, or it is called raw query. From our query here, select asterisk from user info where full name is equals to question mark, wherein a question mark will be given by the value of if name. So we're going to check if kana siya nga user info na-exist ba na siya or wala. Kaya kung dili ta mag-query na kung the same lang imong input nga tawag og user info, magsige ra siya og balik-balik og input. So to limit or to check the inputted value or the inputted user info nga wa ba siya mag-duplicate og entry. Okay, so if cursor.getCount, so we're going to get count is to get the number of rows na exist or na gi-hold ni count ni cursor. So, get count o greater than 0, it means nga na-exist na siya na or na ay ni-exist nga inga nga full name sa ato ang gitawag og database or sa table. So it means mag-return siya og false. We will return false since nga to ang function boolean man. It will return false if dili siya ma-insert or ni-exist na siya sa ato ang database before siya ni-insert. So else, then if wala siya ni-exist, so pwede na to siya i-insert. So to insert long, we'll use long result, long data type, then we'll just have to use the result variable db.insert. Insert, then sa may itong insert from user info na table atong insert just set it ito null, then unsa may itong insert agad itong naa ni content values semicolon, then atong i-check if ang pag-insert successful ba or delay. So we'll just use the result because result variable, because si result mamay mo hold sa response sa db.insert kung na-insert ba ang content values na to ni user info nga table. So result, if si result will equal to -1, so it means nga wala ma-insert ang atong data. So atong i-return sa atong function is false, to let the user or to let the function or to let them know na false, or it means unsuccessful na atong pag-insert sa data. Else, if dili siya -1, else return true. So it means nga true ang iyang return, successful ang ato ang insert na itawag o insert na data, or yes, true kung gi-insert na nga data. So, this one, okay, so that's it for this code, which is insert user data. So to check if working ba ni siya nga gitawag o function, let's put it into action in our main activity.java. So in our main activity.java, so we will have to create, or we will declare a variable for our Java class na atong gamiton every time na atong i-access ang mga functions found in your SQLite helper.java. Because you cannot just directly call this function without declaring the class on your another class, because ato na siyang i-declare for us to be sa atong main. So ang SQLite helper atong i-declare sa atong main function or main class, so that nga maka-access ta sa tanang function sa ato ang SQLite helper na class. So SQLite, so I'll just use this one because it's being suggested. So sa atong save na button, so save that set on click listener new on click listener. So this code here, kung sa ating butang nga code, every time nga tap na to ang button nga save, so unsay code ani mo i-execute sa imong Android application. Okay, so we have here first, before to mag-proceed na, we'll just have to initialize SQL equals new SQ this. So we'll just have to execute SQLite helper that new is equals to SQLite helper that this means a context from this function or from this class to this another class. So kaya every time na magamit ang SQLite helper, new siya nga instantiation. Okay, so we have here, and before we proceed, so we'll just have to declare a string here. So this string here will hold the full name, hold the username, hold the password, and hold the email. So we'll be using this one so that we can get the value for all of these inputted data sa atong edit text. because it is a good practice. Although you can use directly this code here, full name that get x that toString. So you can use this one to get the data from your edit text, pero dili siya advisable when passing it to your SQL query. So that is why we'll be using this hold if name or strings na may modawat first sa value nga naanani, then usa na to ipasa sa string or sa ato ang query. Hold username hold then username that gets string, password that gets string, email gets string. Okay, so here we will now call our function. So boolean get status for inserted data. So we declare a boolean variable. So this gets status inserted data. So unsa i-return sa ato ang gitawag og insert user data nga function here in our SQLite helper, siya ang receive. So take note. So to call our function, we'll call this one SQLite helper dot insert user data. So insert user data need the parameter to be passed, which is the name, username, password, and the user email. So we will be given it to from hold name, then hold username, then hold password, because password is then hold email. Then next, if get inserted status inserted data is equals to true, so you can just shorten this one. This mo na siyang kanang tawag o condition, but you can shorten this one into look Rayani. So get status insert data, it means na og true siya, usod siya daning nga condition. If dili, false siya. So it means og true siya, it means na successful atong pag-insert sa database. So we'll just have to create a toast here to show na insert na ba ang data. User information inserted. So it means na na-insert siya successfully. So toast that length short. So let's show. Then we just have to copy this one. Kung false siya, so it means na wala siya ma-insert. Not inserted. Okay, so let's check for this code here. If true siya, send me or ma-insert. If false siya, dili siya ma-insert. So let's check for this code here. Just have to run. Just have to sample on username, password 1 2 3 4 5 Luffy Memphis. So let's check if our save button will work in inserting data. Oops, so it means user information is inserted. So let's check if ma-insert pa ba natong balik si Monkey D. Luffy. So it is not inserted because si Monkey D. Luffy na exist sa ato ang database. Okay, so let's insert another one. so let's click save. So user information is inserted. So update, wala. Delete, wala pa code. Save, so dili na siya inserted. Kaya na-insert naman si Ronoruwa Zoro. So let's insert another one. So my advice to you, if you're going to create an application for your thesis, so make sure nga yung di-input ng mga data is tinuod nga data. So this one is for demonstration lang, so I can use anything. Pero sa inyong thesis na, make sure nga you are going to input valid data so that dili mo magsigig remove kay sayang row na gi-insert gigamit ninyo then inyo ra pong delete and so on. Puhon nga gamit na ninyo sa actual nga system. So, save. So, user information inserted. So, save, not inserted because it already exists. Okay, so that's it for this part 2 of your lecture demonstration. We will just end it here for this for the data insertion, for the data creation. And on the next part of this video, we'll now proceed to the update code. So we'll just end it here so that dili siya kayo taas-taas nga video demonstration or lecture demonstration. So if ever you have questions, just drop in your question at our comment section or on our GC. So that's it. Thank you and God bless.